Want to take your Cloud Marvel setup to the next level? Look no further. Dat Hazy coming back at you with 10 tips to make your AWS Cloud Marvel server better. Reminder that cloud gaming is not free and typically costs about $1 an hour. Tip number 1. Use the Nvidia Gaming AMI. On my updated setup video, the Nvidia Virtual Workstation AMI was used. The gaming AMI should suit our needs better. I haven't felt a noticeable difference, but I have switched over. Tip number 2. Copy your password and save it. On my updated setup video, before making an image, there's a shutdown with sysprep step, which makes new instances generate a new password for remote desktop. You can save yourself a lot of time by skipping shutdown with sysprep, and just saving your remote desktop password to a text file and using that to log in whenever you launch from an image. AWS password generation can take up to 15 minutes from instance launch. With the password already available, you can get in much sooner. I'll cover the skip part later in the video. Tip number 3. Disabling host on your local computer and my universal parsec settings. Disable host on your local PC if you only want people to connect to your cloud PC. If your local PC has hosting disabled, people will only be able to see your cloud PC on their parsec list. No need to name your home computer Do Not Connect. Besides the hosting part, these are the parsec settings I use everywhere. Important client settings. Decoder to Nvidia, vsync to off, and H.265 to off. You can enable H.265 once connected to a session with Ctrl-Shift-M, and it can provide smoother connections, but make sure to turn it off again in settings after playing or you might get black screen next time you connect to parsec. Important host settings. Resolution 1280 by 720, bandwidth limit 10. I turn echo cancelling off as well, but not important. Tip number 4. Skip CSV files in the GPU updater. On the Nvidia Workstation and gaming AMIs, you don't need to run the GPU updater because the drivers are already there, which also means you don't need to make CSV files. Once the initial Cloud Parsec script is done, Razer Sound installed, and all your parsec settings filled in, go ahead and just skip filling anything out and just reboot the Cloud PC. Bonus tip. You can run the rest of the setup through parsec. When it's done rebooting, load into remote desktop and wait for the parsec icon to appear in the notification area. Once it comes up, you can close out a remote desktop and do the rest of the setup through parsec if you want. I'll leave in a fast-forwarded setup portion so this video shows everything besides making an image. Tip number 5. Fix for Windows activations. Sometimes the AWS instances won't properly activate your copy of Windows. You can force the activation to go through with PowerShell. Open up PowerShell as an admin and paste in this script with right-click. The script will be in the description and the comments. The last line won't automatically run, so make sure you hit enter when it gets there. You should get a pop-up saying your Windows activated shortly after. Tip number 6. Regedit for a smaller title bar. The title bar on 720p is pretty massive and takes away from the amount of space the game has. You can force the bar to be smaller through the registry. Click the start button and type in reg. You should see registry editor pop up. Click on that. Once it's open, click the drop down on H key current user, then control panel, then desktop, and finally click on WindowMetrics. On the right pane, find caption height, right click and hit modify. Change the value to -45, then hit OK. I reboot here before making my final changes before making an image. Tip number 7. Put Steam in offline mode when playing. Nobody wants to see your Steam notifications while playing. Instead of turning notifications off, just put Steam on offline mode before booting up the game when playing. I leave it online when making my image, but once my image is launched, I put it to offline. Tip number 8. Saving window position and accepting connections. Get Marvel open and put parsec on full screen. Drag the window with the mouse all the way at the top and focus on making the game cover the left and right side of the screen. The background on the parsec installation is gray. You can go to training mode character select to make sure that your screen is fitted correctly. Once it looks good, you can exit the game, and when you relaunch, it will be in the same place. If the Windows taskbar shows up while you're trying to move it, just wiggle Marvel a little and make it go away. All you gotta do to accept people is minimize Marvel and double click on the parsec icon in the notification area. Tip number 9. Marvel graphic settings. Your cloud PC Marvel settings can look like this and the game will run perfectly fine. No need to put textures or virtual effects lower. Tip number 2 continued. Now that everything is ready for an image, this is the part of tip number 2 where you skip shutdown with sysprep. Make sure you are exited out of Marvel and then exit out of parsec, or remote desktop if you choose to set up with remote desktop. Go to the dashboard and stop your instance. Once it's stopped, follow the steps in the updated vid to make your image. If you're too lazy to watch the setup video again, make an image by right-clicking on your instance, go down to Image and click Create Image. Wait for your snapshot to complete before terminating. Tip number 10. Default parsec hotkeys. These are the default hotkeys for parsec. You can change them in parsec settings if you wish.